Hi, folks. This is another episode of Corey and Matt talk about. This is recorded on October 20th, 2013. I'm your host, Corey.
My name's Matthew.
And today we're going to talk about this week's upcoming Apple event. This new documentary called Men in Suits, and that's about the guys who wear rubber suits in your various favorite science fiction movies. And we're going to wrap up with a conversation about Nintendo. And I think that's about all you need to know for this one. Anything to add, sir?
Enjoy.
All right. So we'll talk to you in a minute. All right. So what do we got? Apple's got a thing happening on Tuesday.
Indeed they do.
We think that's going to be similar to last year. Just going to drop the nuclear bomb of every product Apple makes all at once.
Yeah, essentially anything that they didn't update in the last event.
Right, which is
a month ago.
Yeah, almost exactly a month.
So, yeah, everything else. So what do you have? The new, some type of update to the full-size iPad.
Yep.
Should be expected. Probably a new iPad mini.
Mm-hmm.
We already know the Mac Pro.
Yeah. So you think they'll take this chance to make the Mac Pro official?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just one of the things that they could do. They're not on any type of deadline with the Mac Pro.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that could come out whenever. It's not like people are clamoring to get a Mac
bit,
Pro.
Yeah.
Johnny wants a Mac Pro for Christmas. Well, fuck Johnny.
Yeah, exactly.
Johnny's not getting a Mac Pro.
Johnny ain't got $4,000.
So that they don't have to do that, but they may just because they're having an event.
Yeah, the timing would be about right. Yeah.
They've also got the MacBook Pros haven't been updated in a while. The Mac Mini hasn't been updated in a while. So Apple TV, I mean, they could throw out a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, pretty much the entire line except for, of course, the iPhones is ripe for the picking, I think.
Yep.
So, yeah.
The MacBook Air got bumped at the last event.
Yep.
Well, actually, they didn't even talk about it at the last event, but then subsequently.
Yeah, it happened like right after. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Not a significant bump, but yeah, just a bump all the same.
Enough of a bump that, we're not going to see anything for that.
Yeah. I think that was basically Apple's signal that, we're not doing Retina or anything like that for the Airs this go around. Maybe next time.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think consensus seems to be that battery life is the hitch there, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a lot of pixels to push around.
Yeah.
I think that they can barely do it. Well, in the very first Retina MacBook Pro, they clearly were engineering at the very most bleeding edge possible because there was a lot of feedback that the processing power wasn't really up to snuff to do what they were trying to do.
Right.
The screen refreshes were slow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think they've taken care of all that. I think the 15-inch MacBook Pro with Retina and the 13-inch MacBook Pro with Retina are good, smooth operating machines.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's ready for something as slim as the Air yet.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Not to mention that's again that's kind of a feature they aim at their pro users, and pros aren't really grabbing up MacBook Airs, I don't think.
Not at all.
So I think probably the Mini will be the item drawing the most attention because that sounds like it's going to get Retina. It's already the best-selling iPad.
Yep.
By most accounts. I think that's the one everybody's going to focus on. It'd be pretty interesting to see if they have any bigger announcement around all this these gaming hints that are coming around. So the controllers we know are due any second.
Yes.
I find it hard to believe that the Logitech and et cetera wouldn't be trying to get those out before Christmas.
The question is, what does Apple want to do in gaming?
Right.
Apple has an infrastructure that would allow them to jump into the gaming scene and become a huge presence basically immediately. So
I'm just banging on the equipment, folks. To pay no mind.
the question is whether or not they'll choose to. But yeah, at any moment, I mean, my sense is that it's the same with Apple as it's always been. And that is, they're just not particularly interested in it.
Right.
I think making the controller back end was as much as they're going to do, and now it will depend on whether or not third-party hardware companies want to step in and make those controllers, and whether or not third-party software companies want to make more complicated, complex games for the iOS platform.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunately kind of how I feel like it's going to go. I wish it was a bit of a different story. I'd like to see Apple really kind of, pick some unified gaming strategy and go with it. I think that's what we'd all like to see. But yeah, I absolutely think the reality is what you're talking about, that they're just, we're going to put it out here, and, whatever you guys decide you want to do with it is fine with us.
Well, I think that's probably the more likely thing. If Apple ever decides to get into gaming in a big way, I think we'll see two things. I think we'll see them, one, snap up a huge software developer.
Yeah.
As Sony did. Maybe a couple. But certainly we'll see them snap up a big software developer. And I don't think it's going to be possible for Apple to ever make a big inroad into gaming unless they develop and market their own controller hardware.
Yeah.
Which there's no indication that they're going to do yet. I mean, at least we haven't had any example of that. If you look at all the hardware manufacturers since the very first dedicated system, the Magnavox Odyssey, what are the components? There's a box that you connect to a display, and there's at least a controller, and there's some level of in-house capability for making games.
Yeah.
And Apple has none of those except for the box that connects to the display.
Yep. And then the flip side is they have the box that connects to the display, but you can't play any games on it right now.
Exactly.
That's the major line I think we'd need them to cross to at least have all the pieces in place.
Yeah, and they could. That's a minor enough thing that they could flip that switch, from what I understand, from everything I've read, fairly quickly.
Anytime they're ready.
They could turn the Apple TV into a gaming box, really, on the back end without having to do much to change the device. What
they could just push out a firmware update or whatever. Yeah.
What they can't do is suddenly come up with a controller and suddenly come up with in-house software titles. And they're going to have a few exclusives if they're going to compete.
Right.
I would look for them to. What's the company that makes Infinity Blade?
Oh, Epic. Yep.
Yeah, I would look for them to buy Epic if they were ever going to get into, because if Apple has a Halo for iOS devices, it's Infinity Blade.
Right. Our very own Epic right here in North Carolina.
Right down the road, baby.
Proud of our hometown boys. Sorry, the dog has decided he wants to eat in the middle of our podcast, so pay him no mind. I don't know if that's coming over the mic or not. But.
He's a loud-eating little son of a bitch, I'll tell you that. We're feeding him bones.
What are you doing, man?
He's devouring a live ostrich.
He's bored. This is what happens when you podcast in the kitchen, folks. What the hell else are we talking about? I don't even know.
Things that Apple might introduce.
Oh, right.
They've also got iPods. This is probably the time of the year where they would do something with iPods, whatever they're going to do. Probably not much.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a new iPod Touch with just new guts on the inside. I'm kind of I don't know what other things they could add to it. As far as feature wise, they started their. You can tell from last year they're kind of starting to have to get creative. Like they made the lanyard socket, last year. Go ahead, sir.
What do they need to do, really? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if I were Apple, I'd just say, okay, our iPod Touch is going to be the iPhone minus cellular antenna.
Yeah, exactly.
The
no phone.
end.
I think it'd be pretty hot if they'd make, they're not, but if they make one that had LTE.
Yeah, that would be hot. But no, they're not going to do that.
Because because I got no use for voice,
No, that would be great. the perennial question is this the year they finally murder and put
the
to
spinning
bed,
drive iPod?
yeah,
Yes.
the last hard drive based iPod.
Yep.
And everyone has been betting yes for like the last 3
5
years.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened. So, if
Well,
it's making plenty of money, maybe it'll live on.
It must be, because, I mean, last year they did nothing to it.
No, not a thing.
We thought that was going to be it. And then we saw, they didn't update it. We're like, okay, it's going to be cut any day now. They're just going to be like, whatever's out there, once we sell it, it's gone. But nope, they're still plugging on. So,
well, what's the capacity on those now?
what did they settle on? They peaked at like 120, right? But then they dropped back down, I think.
No, I think they got they're 160 now.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Jesus.
I think they peaked actually higher than that.
Yeah, you might be right.
But 160, I mean, really, there's still nothing anywhere near that level of storage.
No.
So I guess if the disparity in storage between the highest end iPod Touch and the iPod Classic remains large enough, they'll just keep making it for those, for those storage freaks.
Right.
The people that want to absolutely need to have every song ever written by Western civilization
Right.
with them at all times.
It's basically the iPod Pro.
Yes.
There's not a ton of demand, but Apple's like, well, there's enough demand for us to make money off it, so we'll keep making it. So.
Speaking of which, this is kind of a side topic, but not exactly, because we're talking about the iPod Touch and what Apple may or may not do to it. Do you find it odd that there's a 64 gig iPod Touch still, and yet not a 64 gig
iPhone? There is a 64 gig iPhone.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, mine's.
I
have a 64 gig iPhone.
Well, okay, what was? Oh, they didn't go up to. There was speculation they might go to 128.
128.
That's it.
And they never did. Yeah.
So, do you think that's? Well, I'm sorry. Yes, that's the question. Do you think it's odd that we don't have a 128 gigabyte iPhone yet? Because 64 has been the ceiling. What, for 2 years or 3 years now?
At least 2. It might be. I think it might be that the latest phone is the 3rd year.
Right.
Is how I'm thinking. I might be wrong.
It's been a while.
Yeah. But I don't know, because that's how they used to differentiate the Touch, is they give you like one more level of storage that you couldn't get on the iPhone.
That's right.
They went to 64 on it first, right?
Yep, that's right.
I think that's right. So yeah, I don't know. It's funny about basically the MP3 market, just pure players. Apple's just it. Like I was just talking about what they need to add, or what they feel like they need to add. But really, I mean, there practically is no other iPod Touch-like device out there. There's maybe one or two, but
the entire market segment is dying.
Yeah.
And what is left, Apple controls it utterly.
Yeah, yeah. And really, the way they treat the iPod Touch is, it's essentially what parents get their kids. They don't want to get them an iPhone.
Yes, that's exactly what we did in my household.
Yeah, they want to, and they play games on it and do all their, internet and everything, and just don't use the phone portion of it. You were going to say something?
Well, no, yeah, I agree with all that. I have a question for you, not related to the iPhone, but related to the full-size iPad. Other than making it a bit thinner, we assume it's going to see the now famous chamfered edges,
right?
At all. It's those design cues that we've already seen in other things like the iPad Mini. Other than making it thinner and lighter, what sort of things do you think they can do? Because you mentioned earlier that the iPad Mini really is by far the most popular model of iPad now. Yep. Is there something they could do to the full-size iPad to get that mix more to their liking? Because, of course, they'd obviously prefer to sell more 10-inch iPads.
Yeah, they get more margin. Well, they do have that. You can get the 128 in the big one, so there's that. But I don't know. Maybe they'll put a lanyard hole on the iPad.
Yeah, maybe.
You can wear it around your neck, Now have a clock app, so
people would do it. Don't think people would.
They totally would. We need to get a video going.
Sarah Lane and Serenity Caldwell could wear that, the iPad necklace with their Galaxy Gear watches.
Right. All they have to do is come out with a gold one, like they just did with the iPhone. Now there's a thought. are we going to have the same color selection for iPads as we do for iPhones now? And
that's a big ass chunk of gold.
Yeah.
If they had a full size iPad with that.
That's some major bling right
Yeah.
there.
I mean, but who knows? Any chance for the Touch ID to be on the full size iPad?
I think there's a pretty reasonable chance of that, because
I do too.
they've got plenty of room for the hardware. I don't know. I mean, you could kind of think of it as maybe something Apple would keep to the phone as a differentiator, but I don't know. I feel like they're probably thin enough on features, like you were just saying, that they could add to the full-size iPad. I think keeping it out might do them more harm than good. But you never know what Apple's going to do with stuff like that, because they have a tradition of holding back features for certain models, regardless of how well it would work on another model.
Yes.
So the old the iBooks that wouldn't mirror displays and that kind of thing, or would only mirror displays. And you couldn't run it with the lid closed, et cetera, et cetera. So who knows? I don't see them spreading the Touch ID across. Well, if they put it on, it'd be on every iPad. I don't think there'd be like you can get the iPad with or without Touch ID. That would be one way they could keep the base model cheaper. Like maybe the $500 one didn't have it or something like that. But again, I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. I'm talking out my ass, man. I don't know.
Well, that's all of us are doing. It's an Apple event.
Exactly.
We're just making up shit randomly. The Wall Street Journal, along with a couple of other tech sites, reported a while back, I don't remember when it was, about a larger iPad.
Mm-hmm.
An
Yeah,
iPad
I saw that.
like a 12-inch, 30.
Yeah, basically like the lid of a laptop at that point.
Right. Any chance of that?
This go around, I'd be very surprised. I think if Apple even does something like that, which I'm not entirely convinced they will, I'd say next year on something like that, if they were going to do it.
That would be my impression as well.
I think the biggest question, if you go bigger and something like that, and we actually talked a little about this last time, is where do you go with the resolution?
Mm-hmm.
Because Apple does not want they don't want less density for their Retina displays. But if you only make it a little bit bigger, because the way they do with Retina, they double it.
Right.
And the next step up from, this is a problem they always have. The next step up from the current Retina is like, that's a shitload of pixels,
It's a big-ass step,
Yeah,
Jack.
exactly. So, I don't know. It might be, because they kind of did this with the Mini. The screen density on the Mini is lower pixel-wise. I mean, it looks fine because, the Mini's just smaller. But, it is lesser than the full-size iPad, although, if the Retina update turns out to be true, that goes away.
Yeah.
But it might be something where they're like, if there's a market for a bigger screen,
And we've got a friend desperate,
who would love to have one,
dying for a large screen.
I admit I have some interest. Yeah,
You know
that
you
guy,
are.
JW. For me, the ideal size would be if you could fit a 1-to-1 ratio comic book page on it.
Yep.
Because that's
Mine
what I want to
too.
read. But yeah, maybe it's just that if they want to make a bigger one, they're just like, okay, you're going to have to accept that the pixel density is going to be slightly less. But it ain't going to be much.
That certainly doesn't seem like something they would do, because you would have to, if you accepted a lower pixel density, then you would have a higher end, more expensive product with a crappier display.
screen, right?
And that doesn't seem likely to me.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in is, would Apple ever throw any, and this is air quotes, you can't see this, folks, but I'm throwing up the air quotes hard.
Quote, unquote.
Quote, unquote. Will they ever add any quote, unquote, pro features to the iPad to make it more appealing at the higher price point? For example, Apple threw in an SD card slot in all of their Mac Pros, which had you asked me 5 years ago, I would have said no, that will never happen under any circumstance.
Right.
It's just one more slot that the PC crowd throws on. But what happened is...
They even put them in the IMAX.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what happened is when they went to these all-in-one enclosures, these, enclosures that are basically scooped out of a single piece of aluminum, and they started getting rid of some other legacy ports, they had some more room, so they threw it on there.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they would ever do that with an iPad, because as much as I love my iPad, I'll be honest with you, I'd love for it to have an SD card slot.
Oh, yeah.
Because
totally.
sometimes it's a pain in the ass to get stuff transferred.
Well, yeah, and I've heard people talk about how finicky the reader can be. I've never personally used one, but yeah, apparently it's not always as plug and play as it could be. And I guess that's just up to the vagaries of the different brands of SD cards and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, it's not meant for that.
Right.
I mean, I've used that, and it'll occasionally work inadvertently almost,
Right.
but it's not really meant for transferring general data. It's not even called that, right? It's called like the
the
photo adapter or something.
Yeah, it's called like the import kit or something like that.
It's really
photo import kit.
It's really not meant to do anything but import photos, and it's the only thing it does reliably.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to see something like that. Would Apple do it? My leaning is toward no.
Yeah, mine too. But again, I never thought they would add one to their laptops either.
Right.
Much less they've got one on everything now. I just thought about it. There's one on the Mac Mini now too.
Everything except the all their pads, iOS devices, basically.
Well, they don't have one on the 11-inch MacBook Air, right?
I don't know, to be honest.
I think that's true. I think they don't have one on the...
Well, that would make sense just because space is such a premium on it.
Right, exactly. But there is one on the 13.
Yeah, if they could get it in there, and if it isn't, I believe if it's missing one, I think it's a size thing, not because they just decided not to put it in there.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
Yeah. So yeah, we are talking about a post-Jobs Apple, so you never know what might happen.
No, you don't.
So not that you knew before, but there are certain things you can just see Steve going, no.
Yeah, Steve.
That's not going to happen.
Steve was all powerful at Apple, and he would, excuse me, he would throw things. If you followed him long enough, you knew there were certain things he was going to dismiss out of hand.
Right.
Gaming was one of them.
Yep.
He absolutely, if he were still alive, the chances of them going into gaming would be virtually nil because he just didn't consider it a serious.
Right. And the only reason he came to tolerate it because it was massively lucrative for the iPhone, but that's right. That's really about it.
You can imagine him in his office. Fuck gaming. I don't care, but this is the Mac. We're going to be. How much did that make? That's all right. Fine.
All right, fine. But leave it in.
Don't ever show it to me.
Right. I don't want to hear about it.
That's exactly what happened, with the first Windows version of iTunes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he told the guys, basically, fuck you, do whatever you want to do.
Stormed out of the room.
Yep.
And he was famously incorrect about that.
But that worked out.
Yep. Tell us how it worked out, all you Windows people with iPhones. It worked out pretty good, didn't it?
There's a few.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it would be a question of what other pro features you could work in there. That might be a good candidate for, like I said, I don't think they'd do this, but they could put the Touch ID in the pro, air quotes, model,
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't personally think that makes any sense, but, I guess Apple does a lot of shit that, to me, may not make sense.
And what I just said was kind of bullshit. I was trying to make it sound, podcast topic-y.
Right.
When I said pro features, what I really meant was an SD card slot.
Right. Yeah. We're just talking about this one thing. Yeah.
Because, what else would you... In fact, I don't look at any other... When I think about Kindle devices and when I think about other Android tablets, there's not a single other feature that I really want other than an SD card slot.
Well, yeah, what's left? Ports, which we know Apple's not going to do that. They're not going to give you USB ports.
And I don't want a USB port.
Yeah, they're not going to do any of that. So that's off the table. So yeah, what's left?
Once you put in a USB 2 port, you're substantially going to have to increase the thickness of the device.
Right.
They're certainly not going to do that.
Yeah, the edge has got to be at least as thick as the port.
That's
so
right.
That's what you lose right there. It's already too thin for that as it is. So
in its current incarnation,
yeah,
yes, it is.
They ain't going to make it thicker.
Mm.
So yeah,
they could certainly also get a micro SD card slot in there if they ever wanted to.
Yeah. Those are problematic. They're so fucking tiny. They don't make quote unquote slots for them in current devices. You basically have to peel off a plate like you're getting at a battery and slap it in there somewhere because you have to use tweezers basically to get at it.
Believe it or not, I've been working with a set of Sony point-and-shoot digital cameras all week that were recently acquired, and that is exactly how they do it. You open up the door, there is indeed a micro SD card slot.
Just an actual slot.
A retractable click slot. You have to carefully line it up, slide it down in there, and you can do it with your finger if you're careful enough, but you really need a tool to mash it down in there. But as soon as I saw that, I said to myself, Apple might be willing to put that kind of slot, and furthermore, that kind of slot would fit even into an incredibly thin.
Yeah, that'd be less intrusive, and something else I would be in favor of. Again,
for sure.
Hard time imagining Apple doing it, but
yeah, me too. Because the Sony device, now what they do seem to understand is you don't want to really deal with that little tiny son of a bitch, so they also just give you the full size SD card as a carrier tray.
Right.
So when you want to read it or put it into a computer or whatever.
Yeah, they all come with that, and because that's the problem. It's not that it's getting it back to the computer for whatever reason.
So that was the first one of those I saw. I don't, like you were mentioning, I don't think I've seen a micro slot on anything other than that.
Yeah, everything I've seen, it's not designed for easy access. It's basically a memory expansion type thing more than it is a to shuttle data back and forth.
Yeah, that little tiny surprised the hell out of me. It's a little tiny bastard like your fingernail, and it pops in and out just like an NES cartridge.
Huh. Did you have to blow on it?
I mean, that remains to be seen. But imagine the spring mechanism to something that tiny. Imagine
be microscopic.
Yep.
There's one more thing to break too, because that's the other thing. The slots for the SD cards in Apple Gear don't have any springs or anything.
Nothing.
It's just a raw
hole.
port. Yeah. So
it's just a dirty hole.
I would not expect anything like that.
Just you jam your SD card in.
Ready for anything.
You can't even tell when it's in there until it pops up on the desktop. You really can't. That's a little disturbing sometimes because when I'm using that port, you put the card in there and there's no click. There's nothing to let you know it's in there. You just kind of have to hope the contacts are,
Yep, you have to. Is it in? You tell me. I don't know. I have to wait for some kind of signal.
Is it in, Apple?
So, I don't know. Is there much left to be said about the Apple event? I don't
think
feel
so.
like it is. We've somehow eaten up
we got that and some.
a half hour of airtime with that. So what else do we have on our list of links? Something I saw that looked pretty cool. There's this Men in Suits documentary, and you can get to the trailer on YouTube, but it's basically about guys in science fiction movies who wear the rubber suits. So you've got the old as far back as like Creature from the Black Lagoon,
right?
You've got your the guy who wore the alien suit,
Godzilla. One would assume.
Yep, Godzilla, and the trailer makes a little mention of Godzilla, I think, because originally the Godzilla actors were kept secret. They didn't tell you who was wearing the suit. It helped to, sell the movie,
create the mystique, as it were.
Exactly. Doug Jones is in it a lot. From any Del Toro movie, Guillermo del Toro. You got your Hellboys, your Pan's Labyrinth, etc. So yeah, that looked like a cool movie of interest to us geek types. I was a little disappointed that it doesn't seem to be available digitally. They have an order form for a DVD, but no sort of iTunes or Amazon or any sort of that thing. So I think that's a mistake from marketing perspective.
I do too. In fact, I had a conversation with one of the guys that made an Atari documentary.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Once Upon Atari. Great documentary. Absolutely outstanding. But yeah, it's not available anywhere. You have to send the guy money, dude. You have to send this dude money, and he sends you back a DVD in a box. I'm like, Christ almighty, Jesus, this is 2013.
Well, I mean,
put that shit up somewhere.
Well, I A, haven't heard of it, and B, haven't seen it. And I mean, that's a pretty good indication as to why.
And again, a great documentary. You get to hear about the making of things like, all of the old classic Atari VCS games,
mm-hmm.
and the different guys, such a different era back then. Really fascinating to hear what went into it and how Nolan Bushnell hired people, and they would go and get a giant trunk load full of booze and ice every Friday, and everybody would be drunk from about middle of the day Friday until Tuesday of the next week.
See,
I mean, they were raising hell in
got
Sunnyvale,
Wednesday and Thursday
California.
to sober up, and then you start all over.
And then oh damn, no wonder Pac-Man sucks ass. I had a hangover the whole time I was programming it.
He just moves backwards. He doesn't turn around. Ship it. Ship that shit.
But yeah, there's no way to get it. You have to pay him, and then
now, did he at least take a check, or was it like your grandma sending money to you for your birthday?
No, I mean, I think he accepts
99 cents and pennies.
I think he accepts, at least the last time I looked at the website, I think he accepts normal standard forms of payment. But the point is, once I pay you, I should be able to download that immediately.
Yeah, right away.
Because the only people who want to buy that sort of thing are the people who are going to expect that form of delivery.
Right. And it's not like there aren't mechanisms for that kind of thing. I mean, I understand if maybe you don't want to sell it through Apple because they're taking a sizable cut. Granted, I think you'd end up coming out ahead on that, but Apple ain't the only game in town,
no.
Particularly if you're a small-time independent filmmaker like that. So
well,
I'm hoping with these guys, this is just a preliminary. Okay, we got it out on DVD. We'll be coming out with digital soon, but I haven't seen any indication of that.
Well, look at your boy Louis C.K. Do it like he's doing it.
Yep.
He just sells the damn file right off his website.
Yeah. All he needs is the bandwidth to handle it. And I think last time he didn't have enough. I think as soon as it went on sale, his site went down or something like that. I remember seeing people on Twitter bitching about that.
Yes, the video is called the documentary I'm talking about is called Once Upon Atari. It's really good. Scott West Productions, great documentary. You can pay for it with normal forms of payment, PayPal, cards, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But yeah, you can't download it.
At least there's that.
It's depressing.
But yeah. So
no, that suit movie, I was just watching the trailer. It looks really, really good. They found that guy, the guy that was in the suit in Ridley Scott's Alien.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got some guy down at the pub.
They just found a dude with the right physique, huh?
They were down at the pub, saw this skinny, I think he would work. They said he worked as a graphic designer. Super tall, skinny ass dude. And they're like, "Hey,
come be in a movie.
Come get your ass in this suit." And he did.
I wonder how much he knew he was in for, because he had to be as thin as he was. He still had to be sweating half his body weight like daily in that thing, and he probably urinated in it. I mean, let's face it.
Yes, 7'2"
Jesus,
Nigerian actor Bolaje Badejo. That's my best guess on the pronunciation.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah, Mr. Badejo, if that's wrong, we apologize. But yes, he was not an actor previously. There you go. Alien is indeed his one and only film credit.
One and only credit, huh?
Yep.
So yeah, I would like to see. I'm double checking to see if maybe I'm wrong about this digital download thing. I don't know that I am, but let's Let's see. I want to tell you properly, folks.
You are going to, and also young documentarians / independent filmmakers, you are going to make up Apple's 30% in volume if you put it on iTunes. There's no reason to be afraid.
Yeah, because you'll have people stumbling across it who weren't even looking for it because they'll be looking for related stuff. Like if they put in Alien, your movie's going to come up. If they put in Predator, your movie's going to come up. They put in, fill in the blank, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Lost in Space.
Basically, your exact audience.
Right. That's going to come up. So I don't really get that. And and you know what's funny? It's available on Amazon. So Amazon would be like, well, yeah, we'll sell it digital.
Of course.
Yeah. Now, they take a cut too, but still, it's volume, people. Volume. First citywide change bank. How do we make money? Volume.
That's right.
So anyway, I think I'd like to check that out.
It does sound good.
As much as it...
Maybe we could do a review at some point.
Yeah.
A little short review.
As much as it galls me to have to deal with physical media.
Ugh.
Yeah, we'll put that link in the show notes so y'all can get to that.
It's a DVD. They're going to send you a big piece of plastic, Corey Thomas.
With metal foil inside it.
And you're going to have to put it into a thing.
That we shoot it with a laser to play it.
Jesus.
Just, what does your kid think about that when you tell him stuff like that?
Well, practically never. When you tell them they have to go get a DVD and put it in, they're almost out of the movie.
They're just done.
They got to really want to watch the movie bad to go look through the DVD cases to watch it. They expect me to be able to download it on iTunes, watch it on Netflix, stream it from the Apple TV. They will not brook with any physical media.
Yeah. Why would you not? And that's the thing you're dealing with. I mean, you got guys like us who prefer not to have to deal with it, but we will if the situation calls for it. You're gonna get the next generation where they're gonna be like, I have to do this to watch it. Fuck it, I don't care. Then that's more effort than I want to put into it.
And not only that, but you can't make them do it. That's the other problem. You've got to offer convenient download because if you don't, they'll just steal it from the internet.
Right, exactly.
They will make a convenient download
because that's more convenient. Exactly.
Yeah, not necessarily because they're thieves, but just because it's more convenient.
Right, and that, to be pulling Apple back into the conversation, that's one thing Steve was exactly right about.
Perfectly
correct. You give people an alternative to piracy that is just as easy and reasonably priced. That's important, reasonably priced. Most people will take that option. And today, iTunes is the number one music store, bar none of any kind. Yeah.
That's right. He was exactly right. And he focused on, people were focusing on the wrong thing, and that was people weren't downloading music illegally because they inherently enjoyed thievery.
Right.
That they weren't getting loaded, with Schlitz malt liquor. I'm gonna go to Napster and I'm gonna get me some free shit right now, son. That's not what was happening.
Was that Bill Cosby stealing music?
I would like to go to the Napster
and have a pudding pop.
This is going to get the Lena Horne. They didn't want to steal it. It was just a lot easier to do.
Right.
So they're like, okay, well, here's the song for 99 cents, and you get all the ease and convenience of downloading it, but pay a little bit and don't have to worry about crappy downloads.
Right.
And if the movie industry will adopt that model, they'll you'll always have some people stealing it.
Well, yeah, there's a certain percentage of population they're just going to, and there's nothing you can do about that. But yeah, but most people, if you make it easy, they're good to go.
If you have the idea you're going to pay me $20 and the only way you're going to get this is on a DVD, your shit is going to be stolen.
Yeah, that's just how it is,
whether you like it or not.
You'll have to rely on people who are not just honest, but painfully so.
Yes.
to get your business.
You got like 6 guys.
Yeah.
That are gonna
You know, or you'll get guys who are like, okay, fine, let's go in on it, you know,
Exactly.
and buy one copy, you know, and then we'll get it, we'll rip it, and all of us can have a copy. And see, there you go.
And instead of 10, $9.99 sales, you've got one $20 sale.
Exactly.
Do the math.
Exactly. Or the maths for the British amongst you.
British-speaking audience, exactly.
I know that's one of your points of irritation.
Do the maths.
So yeah, we're going to check that out. We'll get back to you. You had some Nintendo stuff in here. I believe you wanted to talk about it.
Yes, sir. Two items of interest were, of course, Apple, or not Apple. We're not talking about them for once. Nintendo.
We'll get back to it, though.
Nintendo.
Just wait.
It seems inevitable. Nintendo recently released a version of their 3DS handheld system, and it's curious. It's the 2DS.
Mm-hmm.
They ripped the 3D element out of it.
Right.
They've still kept the two screens, and also it's no longer a clamshell device. It's not a folding device. It's more like an iPad. It's one continuous unit with two displays on it.
Yeah, it's just a wedge, basically.
Yes.
Looks like a piece of cake.
It's really nice and really comfortable. I played with one at the store last week, and it's really rather enjoyable. But the question is, what does that get you? And it remains to be seen if it gets you anything. The obvious differentiator is it's cheaper than the 3DS.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to see how that goes, if that's something that kids gravitate to. I don't think it's going to pull anything among older teenagers or adults, but
right.
I'm interested to see if the lower price plus the simpler form factor is something that takes off with the kiddie set.
Yeah. Well, you've got a couple of advantages. It is cheaper, and I presume it's not going to be as fragile if it's not a clamshell. So it's something you could maybe get a younger kid and not worry about them snapping the lid off or any of that kind of thing.
That's right.
I know for me, it's just more appealing to me personally because, I just never cared about the 3D feature. Like I figured if I ever got a 3DS, which I don't have one, but if I did, I'd just turn the 3D off. And now, I do kind of miss, or I would, I think, miss the ability to fold it. 'Cause I think that's pretty hot. I have since the DS originally came out. But, I don't know that it'd be a deal breaker. Between the two, I think I'd still gravitate toward the 2DS. The 2DS. Just because it's cheaper and I don't care about the 3D.
My son's got a 3DS, and just like you're mentioning, he turned the 3DS off within hours after he got it, and I don't think it's ever come back on.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just a novelty, and, there may be a few games that make good use of it, but yeah, I just, it's a fad. I think the market has borne that out. 3D TVs haven't gone anywhere. The 3DS wasn't a super smash hit. I mean, it's certainly successful, but
yeah, but it was a hit, and I think the 3DS was a hit, and I think we're saying that it had little to nothing to do with the 3D.
The 3D,
aspect. It was just because it was a new Nintendo handheld system that you could play Pokemon.
I mean, the DS was a monster hit, and it's just the same thing all over again.
So I think the long and short of it is that I think the 2DS is not only going to be popular, I think it's going to eventually sort of supplant the 3DS as Nintendo's main handheld system.
Yep. It would be interesting maybe if that does come to pass. We could see like the 2DS and the 3DS XL and just ditch the 3DS entirely because then you have, like we were talking about with Apple, you have a bigger differentiator between your standard product and your Pro. So 3D, because if 3D does not matter to you, the bigger screen might, so.
Well, and isn't that odd? I was about to throw in there. Isn't it odd that the two screens do seem to have caught on?
Yeah.
Now, the 3D aspect, nobody was enthused about.
Right.
But having that second screen seemed to have brought something to the game that most gamers enjoyed.
Yeah, Apple. See, I'm doing. Oh.
Damn it, man!
Can't stop. Nintendo, has stuck with it, and I've wondered, is I guess that'd be the thing. They're sticking with the two screen path, and I guess it's more the fact that you can touch it than the fact that there are two screens. It's essentially another. It's the alternate means of input. That's the feature as opposed to a second screen, because that's always been the part that third-party games have struggled with, is finding some good use for the display on that. There are lots of cool things you can do with it in terms of using the stylus, but as far as for display purposes, I haven't seen much that's.
And I'm not sure what there has to be some combination of factors that's making that at least somewhat popular, because I would think my initial thought would be, well, what you'd want to do with that space is make a much bigger screen and then make that screen into a touch screen.
Right.
Like the PS Vita did.
Yeah, or the controller for the Wii U.
Yeah, but no damn body wants a PS Vita.
Exactly. You can't give that shit away.
You really can't. I mean, it's been a colossal failure. I don't know why, because it's really like a tiny ass touchscreen PS3.
It's a nice little machine. Yeah.
Nobody wants it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because it's just more of a hardcore product that Well, I guess I don't know many kids who would be interested in it, and I think with the handhelds we're talking about more of a kids market, because if you're an adult you've got a phone.
I was about to throw that in there. So what we're saying basically is the handheld market seems to be a kids market.
Yeah,
because it's very price sensitive. Because really, a Vita's only, Vita is $200, but that's only $50 more than a 3DS.
Yeah, exactly.
So
for a much slicker experience, really, as far as the games go.
Yep.
That's something that makes me think of. I meant to mention this during the iPod conversation. Maybe they would make a plastic housing for the iPod Touch as well.
Oh yeah, that's
that could
not
be
a bad
an option.
idea.
Because if Apple wants to kind of go after that younger gamer market, make it a little bit cheaper one. They got the games.
I think you might have just made some news, son. I mean, I would not. That's actually a really smart thought. I wouldn't be surprised at all in this event if the iPod Touch went to the same type of whatever that super durable, badass plastic coating.
Polycarbonate?
Yeah. I mean, I know that just is a fancy word for plastic, but
right.
all the reviews say this is a nice. I mean, all plastics aren't the same. When you say plastic, the plastic on a Dell Latitude laptop is not the same as the plastic on the back of an iPhone 5C.
No,
by any means. So, yeah, I think that's a smart. That's a good point. I would not be surprised at all if the iPod Touch did that. They could maybe reduce the price or not. I mean, it's Apple, but.
You get up to $200 territory, then you're starting to get into iPod Touch land there. So I mean, throw some plastic on there. You got the colors, and I, Nintendo loves to make them in colors, so Apple does as well. So you've got some overlap there. I could easily see them doing that. But anyway, we were talking about Nintendo, so we'll. So you've got something here about Wii U sales going up, which I had not heard about.
Yeah, let me tell you that. That's the strangest thing. I got a Wii U when they came out. It languished horribly.
Oh, I know, because I bought one to, as you well know, I bought one for speculation purposes on eBay, and I took a bath, man.
It did not go well.
No.
Well,
I ate like $115.
There were no good games for the longest for the Wii U. And it languished, and people didn't, I don't think Nintendo really even ever successfully differentiated between the Wii and the Wii U. A lot of people didn't even realize initially that the Wii U was an entirely different system.
Yeah. It wasn't marketed well.
It wasn't.
The commercials were few, and they also just weren't that good.
No, they weren't good, and you didn't get what it was. I mean, you could have, the thing looks like a Wii. It uses the Wii controllers except for the touchscreen controller. So it was really a confusing concept. Now, I pretty much gave the Wii U up for dead, and maybe we still should. However, in the last couple of weeks, they've done a couple things. I don't know when the price cut occurred, but they had a $50 price cut, and they released The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker in HD for the Wii U. Some combination of those two things have driven up the Wii U sales 200%. Now, 200% of jack shit isn't great, but that's an impressive
It's nothing
jump.
to sneeze at. Yeah.
And so I guess what I was wondering is, as we sit here on the eve, a couple months away from the release of the Xbox One and the PS4, does the Wii U have any juice left in it, or is it going to be the death knell for Nintendo? The other thing I wanted to add is that also, at the same time, sales have jumped up 200%. The Wii U, inexplicably, but definitely, I mean, you can go Google it and do your research, has been getting much better reviews in terms of its technical capabilities. Because as the PS4 and Xbox One games have been released, people have been seeing that not many of the games are 60 frames per second.
Yep.
And an impressive number, relatively impressive number, of the Wii U games are 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
So people are revisiting just how big the gap between the specs of the Wii U and these other next-gen systems actually is.
And I've seen people ragging on the footage from the new Madden game, talking about, for next-gen systems, it does not look next-gen.
Right.
So yeah, Nintendo, I think, at least in terms of hardware, has, again, they've closed the gap enough to where it's less of a factor. The Wii didn't compete on that.
No,
So,
certainly not.
It's hard to use that as any sort of example, but
And I don't think the Wii U is going to really compete with the best PS4 and Xbox One games, but it doesn't. It only has to be close.
right, it's got, just close enough that the average Joe is not going to care or notice, really, for that matter. I mean, you're gonna have that contingent that's going to fight about that shit.
Sure,
But,
absolutely.
But yeah, the average user like me, if you throw up 3 screenshots, I'm really going to have to scrutinize to tell the difference, and even then, I might not be able to.
Right, and I wrote a few blog posts way, way, way back in the day when the Wii U came out, and especially guys my age, I can tell the difference between a ColecoVision game and an Atari VCS game because it was angrily, drastically different.
Right.
Like the Donkey Kong, take a game like Donkey Kong on the Atari VCS. Donkey Kong is just a big pile of shit-colored bricks. I mean, it bore no resemblance to a gorilla. And on ColecoVision, it looked like a fucking gorilla.
Right.
But the difference between systems now is so minute. And if Nintendo can survive that comparison and get to the meat of their in-house shit like Metroid and they've got a new Super Mario game coming out soon.
Yep,
If
that'll
they
be
could
big.
get to that, they may do better than I initially thought, and that I think the industry as a whole thought they were going to do.
Yeah. It's a pile of shit-colored bricks.
Well, you can't go well, I don't know who's got an Atari VCS anymore, but if you got one, you can go look. But the easiest thing would be to go download an emulator and look.
Yeah.
But if you see, there's nothing about it. It's like there's nothing about Donkey Kong on the Atari VCS that remotely resembles a gorilla, a mammal, an animal. It's got these horrible vacant eyes. So for the eyes of Donkey Kong on the Atari VCS, they just didn't put any blocks. They just left it so basically you just see through the back of Donkey Kong as if his eyes have been scooped out in some horrific scientific experiment.
So if he passes in front of something, you can see it.
The thing behind it, exactly. So,
Well, that's horrific.
yeah, it is. I think I'm going to give myself Atari VCS 8-bit nightmares that are pixelated.
All right. We're closing in on an hour, so I didn't know if you had any other juice for this week. I know next week we can talk about the Apple event.
Yes,
And
we will cover that in depth.
what was a surprise, what was not, etc., etc. So I think we've got that show ready made for us. I know last week on our last show we mentioned there's a comic book show NBC, the Peacock Comiccon, the NC Comic-Con coming up in Durham.
Let's mention that because these guys are our friends. The NC North Carolina Comic-Con is being held November 9th and 10th at the Durham Convention Center in downtown Durham. That's a wonderful event to attend.
Along with a fine ComiQuest Film Festival at the Carolina Theater.
Our beloved Carolina Theater.
Yes, a local landmark and all-around awesome place.
The film festival actually gets started a day earlier.
Yep, on
and even
Friday.
if you can't make the convention, you can still come by and see the showings of the film festival.
Yep, you don't need tickets for both.
The ComiQuest Film Festival is on the 8th, 9th, and 10th of November.
Yep. And so we're definitely going to talk about that at least one show before. That might be a good candidate for our last show of October, something like that.
Yep.
Leading into it, or maybe that first weekend in November. At any rate, we are going to talk about that, so you folks tune in for that. In the meantime, I think that's going to do it for this week. I'm Corey.
My name is Matthew.
And we'll talk to you next week.